So that happened in New York on Saturday. So it
Okay.
was literally just a bunch of fat people. They went to the beach. And I said this on the show where I said, if this was like an interest group.
Brett Cooper's abrupt departure from the Daily Wire sent shockwaves through conservative media, igniting a frenzy of rumors about what really went on behind the scenes. Fans who grew up watching her fearless commentary in the comment section were caught off guard as the star seemed poised to lead the network's next big project, a high-stakes remake of Snow White and the Evil Queen. But on December 10th, in a tearful video message, Brett announced she was leaving the Daily Wire for good. Why did she walk away just as her career was skyrocketing? Was it merely a clash of creative visions, or something even more complicated lurking beneath the surface? Buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the real reasons behind Brett Cooper's sudden exit, the tensions that led to it, and what her departure reveals about the evolving power dynamics in conservative media. Before we delve into the controversies, let's look at how Brett Cooper found herself on a fast track to success. She didn't begin with a famous last name or a pre-existing fan base. Instead, Brett earned her spotlight through razor-sharp commentary that resonated with viewers from all walks of life. She was blunt, outspoken, and unapologetic. Exactly the tone the Daily Wire wanted for its brand. The comment section quickly became a staple of the network, tackling everything from bizarre pop culture moments to heated political debates. Brett's authenticity was magnetic. Audiences felt she was one of them, reacting in real time to the internet's wildest stories. Clips of her wisecracks began going viral on social platforms, catapulting her popularity well beyond the network's usual crowd. Producers at the Daily Wire took note. Brett wasn't just another voice at the table, she was the voice, the one turning heads among advertisers and potential collaborators. Soon, fans found themselves tuning in not just for the trending topics, but for Brett's distinct viewpoint. She cultivated an online community that loved her comedic timing as much as her political barbs. And for a while, it seemed like the Daily Wire had struck gold with a new face who was the perfect mix of fresh energy and unwavering conservative convictions. But even the brightest spotlights can cast long shadows. Rumors started circulating that while Brett's presence boosted ratings, it also stirred up internal friction. Anonymous sources whispered that Brett craved more freedom in choosing her segments, including how far she could push the boundaries of her comedic style. She wanted to tackle controversial issues on her own terms, going beyond the typical culture war bullet points. Meanwhile, the Daily Wire had a specific brand to maintain, edgy enough to attract younger audiences, but still anchored in a clear, unwavering conservative stance. Reportedly, each time Brett wanted to experiment or branch out, producers would pull back, afraid the content might deviate from the network's chosen angle. A now-deleted Instagram story only fueled the speculation. In it, Brett hinted at wanting to explore new directions and feeling that her creativity was being stifled. She later downplayed the post, suggesting it was taken out of context. Still, fans were quick to wonder if storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. Enter the Snow White remake, a grand venture by the Daily Wire intended to show Hollywood that conservative storytellers could produce big-budget, family-friendly hits.
I'm very grateful. It was very overwhelming at first, not from the standpoint of, like, I'm not, like, prepared for this or anything like that, because ironically, and I don't know if there's a way to say this without feeling like egotistical, but I think that my mom did, a great job of this because I grew up in the acting world.
Mm-hmm. To many, casting Brett Cooper as Snow White was a no-brainer. She already had the fairy tale looks, plus a strong following that would rush to the theaters. At first, the project seemed like a dream come true for her career, a chance to blend acting talent with a beloved childhood story. Then came disagreements. According to insider leaks, Brett believed the essence of Snow White should be preserved, focusing on timeless themes such as wonder, courage, and innocence. She feared that making it overly political might strip the fairy tale of its magic, alienating audiences who simply wanted an enchanting escape. The Daily Wire, for its part, viewed Snow White as an opportunity to make a cultural statement, showing the entertainment world that conservative values could be embedded in mainstream stories without apology. Those creative clashes reportedly escalated as pre-production moved forward. Brett was adamant about not turning the project into a political soapbox. Her supporters say she felt pressured to overshadow the story's whimsical elements with explicit conservative messaging. Staffers behind the scenes started whispering that tensions were reaching a boiling point. It was becoming clear that Brett had a vision for Snow White that clashed with the network's broader mission. Then came December 10th, In a heartfelt and emotional video uploaded to her personal YouTube channel, Brett confirmed what many had feared. She was departing the Daily Wire for good. In that tearful address, she thanked the company for helping her build her platform, but emphasized it was time for her to step into a new chapter. She spoke of creative exploration and professional growth, terms that signaled to longtime viewers that her ambitions had outgrown her current surroundings. The immediate reaction from fans was a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. People flooded social media, begging her to reconsider. Others criticized the Daily Wire, accusing it of stifling one of its brightest talents. The Daily Wire's official statement was polite, expressing gratitude for Brett's contributions while acknowledging that it was never easy to lose a star who'd become synonymous with the brand.
The way it turned out for the world was awful, but I think that it gave me a lot of distance. It forced me to reflect a lot about the people that I was surrounding myself with, the industry that I was in. It pulled me out of an educational environment that I think was very difficult for me to survive in.
Meanwhile, rumors swirled that higher-ups within the Daily Wire felt blindsided by her timing, especially with the Snow White remake on the line. One senior producer reportedly called it a gut punch and bemoaned the logistical nightmare of possibly losing their leading lady right before critical production phases. What happened next only added fuel to the fire. Eagle-eyed followers noticed a series of unfollows on social media. Brett unfollowed the Daily Wire's official handles, co-founder Jeremy Boring, and even her close friend turned producer, Reagan Conrad. Reagan had been integral to the comment section from day one, yet the two now appeared at odds. Shocked fans dissected every Instagram like and Twitter heart to see if the feud was more personal than professional. Then came more drama. Brett's mother, Diane Cooper, was caught liking comments accusing Reagan of betrayal. One user claimed Reagan was trying to step into Brett's shoes, and that the Daily Wire had offered her a hefty contract to replace Brett as host. Diane's likes on those posts spoke volumes, at least to fans who interpreted them as silent approval. People started to wonder, was there an actual rift between Brett and Reagan, or was it a misinterpretation blown out of proportion by rumor-hungry internet detectives? Either way, the drama was escalating, and viewers were glued to their phones for updates. Naturally, the conservative media sphere lit up with commentary from every corner. Candace Owens weighed in, describing Brett's exit as a wake-up call for networks that failed to grow alongside their star talent. Others pointed to the incident as a broader indictment of conservative media's attempts to tackle pop culture. If you bring in someone like Brett Cooper, young, edgy, with a style that appeals to a broader audience, you have to be ready for the possibility that her personal brand might outshine the platform.
And I get comments from people being like, oh, I introduced my grandchildren to your show. Like, I found you through Daily Wire. My mom is like my biggest fan on YouTube. Definitely took this survey. I don't know, she's not over the age of 65, but she's in the older demographic. But I don't know how many of them follow me on Instagram or would know to go to community pages to click on the survey. So that is impressive. Good for you guys.
From a fan perspective, opinions were split. Some applauded Brett for taking a leap of faith and staying true to her own vision, especially when confronted with creative limitations. Others worried she might lose the credibility she'd built up as a fearless conservative voice. Would Hollywood swoop in and water down what made her special? Or could she strike a balance, forging a new path that still resonates with the values she championed at the Daily Wire? Adding to the speculation, industry insiders claimed Brett was already fielding calls from big-name production houses and talk show networks. She hinted at new projects during an Instagram Q&A, saying she was just getting started. Whether that means stepping into another major acting role, launching her own podcast empire, or something else entirely remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the media world is watching her every move. The lingering question, will Brett Cooper still portray Snow White, or is she out of the picture for good? Her contract with the Daily Wire supposedly includes clauses binding her to the Snow White production, meaning she can't just walk away without some form of negotiation. Yet the specifics remain murky, and legal experts say it could go either way. The Daily Wire might recast at the 11th hour or try to salvage the partnership by offering Brett a unique deal as an independent contractor. Fans, meanwhile, are left in suspense. People who were originally hyped for Brett's fresh take on the iconic princess now worry the film might go in a drastically different direction without her. Some suspect the Daily Wire will double down on the political angle, turning Snow White into more of a rallying cry for conservative values. Others argue that the production might take a financial hit if the network can't replicate Brett's name recognition. All of this uncertainty has sparked even more curiosity about the final product. Some fans intend to watch the film purely to see how the drama unfolds. This entire saga underscores the challenges of navigating a rapidly changing media landscape. For a rising star like Brett Cooper, the opportunities extend far beyond hosting a commentary show. She's become a household name in conservative circles and increasingly beyond. That opens doors, from mainstream talk shows to film roles that don't necessarily align with a single political ideology. On the flip side, The Daily Wire is trying to expand its cultural footprint, investing in original content like movies and TV series that challenge Hollywood's stranglehold on entertainment. Clashes are inevitable. As Brett's ambitions grew, she seemed eager to separate her personal brand from a purely political label. Meanwhile, The Daily Wire thrives on the synergy between media commentary and ideology. The question is whether the network is flexible enough to accommodate a high-profile host who wants to branch out. So far, the answer seems to be no. One can't ignore the influence of Ben Shapiro, co-founder of The Daily Wire. Known for his sharp-witted debates and outspoken stance on hot-button issues, Shapiro is both an asset and a challenge for any co-talent under the Daily Wire umbrella. Insiders say Brett's departure took him by surprise, and there's talk that he felt personally disappointed. After all, the comment section was part of his broader vision for pushing conservative commentary into new territories.
A few months after that, there was the revival of Annie that was coming up. I was way too tall for Matilda. Matilda was on Broadway. Billy Elliot had just closed. This is all just a bunch of theater nerd stuff. But there were a ton of shows that had kids in them at that time, and I literally could not audition for any of them.
How tall were you?
I was 5'2". I think so. I was barely over, but I was 10 years old and 5'2".
Digitally savvy, youth-focused, and unafraid of controversy. When the star of that approach walks away, it stings. Shapiro has famously parted ways with other conservative media personalities before, but Brett's exit is different because it comes at a time when the Daily Wire is heavily investing in cinematic ventures. Snow White wasn't just another show, it was a statement. Losing the leading face of that statement might force the network to reevaluate how it navigates the delicate balance between creative freedom and political messaging. Through all of this, Reagan Conrad found herself unexpectedly thrust into the limelight. She was, by most accounts, Brett's confidant and right-hand producer on the comment section. Now, rumor has it she's set to take over hosting duties. On social media, conspiracy-level speculation abounds. Did Reagan betray Brett for a bigger role? Did the Daily Wire pit them against each other from the start? Or is the drama being blown out of proportion because fans are desperate for a villain in this story? Reagan has made only brief statements, saying she respects Brett and wishes her well. She's also confirmed that she'll do her best to keep the comment section fun and engaging for loyal viewers. Yet, the swirl of rumors continues, magnified by Brett's unfollow spree and Diane Cooper's liked comments. Whether it's real animosity or just a social media soap opera is anyone's guess. But in the court of public opinion, Reagan now has the unenviable job of filling Brett's shoes while under intense scrutiny from fans who see her as an interloper. Candace Owens, another figure known for fearless rhetoric, chimed in on Brett Cooper's exit in a viral livestream. She pointed to the event as a case study in what happens when organizations can't keep pace with their own breakout stars. Owens, who's also a high-profile Daily Wire host, suggested that networks must give talent enough breathing room to explore new avenues, or risk pushing them away. She didn't directly criticize the Daily Wire, but her tone was telling. Many viewers read between the lines, if Brett Cooper can leave, who might be next? Brett's audience is famously passionate and vocal. Some have vowed to follow her wherever she goes, praising her for stepping out of a restrictive environment. Others feel betrayed, having tuned in primarily for her conservative take on current events. Will a future Brett Cooper show pivot away from conservative politics altogether, focusing instead on pop culture or mainstream acting roles? Her supporters insist she can succeed in any format. But critics argue she might lose her spark if she distances herself from the political edge that made her famous. Online forums are ablaze with speculation, with theories ranging from she's going to run for office to she's signing a Netflix deal any day now. The truth is, nobody outside Brett's inner circle really knows what her next step entails, and that mystery only feeds the hype. From a purely legal standpoint, Brett's departure raises numerous questions. The Snow White contract alone could trigger complicated negotiations. If the Daily Wire tries to hold her to the agreement, we might see a scenario where she's contractually obligated to promote or star in a film produced by a company she just left.
UCLA sororities, as you know, are very in the public. We're not like in an enclosed campus or anything like that.
Meaning you're in Westwood, off of campus.
So you can walk up to a sorority house and you might
Yeah.
think that they're just some like LA mansion, but it's where all these girls are living. And so we had been having problems with random crazed homeless men coming up and breaking into sorority homes. And at one point, there was a guy who had gone up to, Kappa, I believe, and then made his way down, but was like going to all of the houses. People have been taking photos of him.
Alternatively, if they recast, there could be financial penalties or even lawsuits if either side feels the other is breaking the contract in bad faith. Lawyers on both sides are likely working overtime to navigate these murky waters. Even beyond the conservative media bubble, Hollywood is watching closely. Brett Cooper represents a new breed of star, unabashedly opinionated online, with a fan base that crosses political lines simply because they find her compelling. Studios and networks care about talent with built-in audiences, someone who can bring guaranteed eyeballs to any project. Brett checks those boxes, which is why offers might be pouring in from companies that have no official stance on politics, but recognize the marketing potential. If Brett successfully transitions to mainstream entertainment, it could encourage other conservative personalities to rethink their alliances. Why stay locked in a niche platform if you can draw a wider crowd on your own terms? This could herald a shift where conservative stars realize they can go big if they lean into their personal brand rather than a network's brand. That's a big deal for the entire landscape of partisan media. The statements released by Brett and the Daily Wire remain cordial on the surface, filled with phrases like thanking each other and wishing the best. But to insiders, there's a strong sense that frustration simmered beneath those polished words. The abrupt departure, timed so closely to Snow White's crucial stages, suggests something more serious than just an amicable split. A few staffers have dropped hints that the Daily Wire was blindsided by the exact date Brett chose for her announcement, but no one seems willing to go on the record in a significant way. Meanwhile, in interviews and social media Q&As, Brett has been polite yet vague. She talks about growth, new directions, and the need for creative autonomy, all of which are perfectly valid reasons for leaving a job. The question is whether these phrases serve as coded references to deeper disagreements or a fundamental mismatch between her trajectory and the network's goals. It's worth noting that rumors often run wild in situations like this. Every liked post or cryptic tweet becomes fodder for 1,000 theories. Some have accused Brett of staging drama to drum up publicity for whatever she does next, a common accusation in the entertainment world. Others believe the Daily Wire orchestrated the tension to hype up the Snow White film. Neither scenario seems particularly likely, but in the absence of solid facts, speculation fills the void. Why all the fuss about this fairy tale remake anyway? Snow White might seem like an odd choice for a conservative media company known for political commentary, but in a world where every Hollywood remake is scrutinized for wokeness or political correctness, producing their own version of a classic tale allows the Daily Wire to enter the cultural battleground. By controlling the narrative, they can show how they believe stories should be told, focusing on traditional morals, timeless romance, and heroism without heavy-handed modern reinterpretations. For Brett Cooper, starring in such a production was both an opportunity and a risk. Her fans might have cheered, but critics could accuse her of pushing propaganda. It's a delicate line. The question remains whether she decided that line was too risky for her blossoming career.
Traditional beliefs. I actually think it was the Claire Booth Luce organization, which is funny. I was at their event on Friday night. I didn't realize that it was them that had done this study, but they did a survey of women. The majority of women, overwhelmingly so, want to be moms, would love to be stay-at-home mothers, are interested in all that.
Not have to work.
Exactly, yeah.
Not have to have a job
But then the last question of that survey was talking about how they feel like they're perceived and how they vote, and they said that they hide that.
Especially if the final product turned into a politicized lightning rod. One cannot underestimate how deeply viewers connected with Brett Cooper on a personal level. She was more than just a talking head. Through the comment section, audiences felt like they got to know her sense of humor, her take on everyday dilemmas, and even glimpses of her personal life. That kind of parasocial relationship runs deep. So a split from the Daily Wire can feel like a personal betrayal for fans who saw her as the face of that entire community. The outpouring of social media posts, emails, and messages that followed her announcement reflected heartbreak and confusion. People wondered if the entire brand would shift without her. Would the comedic, relatable vibe vanish if the new host didn't share Brett's spark? Brett's departure thus represents more than just a job move. It's a cultural shift for thousands of followers who found a sense of belonging in her content. The million-dollar question for the Daily Wire is how to handle Snow White's leading role. Insiders claim that producers have a short list of potential replacements if negotiations with Brett fall through. Some say the Daily Wire might even delay the film's release to ensure they have time to restructure the production and marketing strategy. After all, the hype surrounding Brett's involvement was a major selling point. Without her, can they still generate the same buzz? Alternatively, the Daily Wire might see an opportunity in recasting. If they find another rising star, perhaps someone with a huge social following or a fresh political edge, they could pitch it as a bold new direction. That said, fans who were specifically drawn to the idea of Brett as Snow White might feel betrayed if their beloved commentator is swapped out. It's a tricky balancing act, and the Daily Wire's next move could set the tone for how it handles future large-scale productions. While the conservative media world continues buzzing, Brett appears to be taking things in stride. Despite the swirling rumors, she's teased new collaborations, potential acting gigs, and the possibility of launching her own independent platform. Could she become a crossover star, dabbling in mainstream talk shows, podcasts, or even comedic sketches that appeal to a wider audience than the Daily Wire's core demographic? One possibility that has some fans excited is the notion of Brett producing her own content, completely free from network constraints. She could hire her own team, set her own editorial guidelines, and expand into everything from lifestyle coverage to on-the-ground reporting. That level of independence would let her forge a brand that's distinctly hers, unencumbered by network politics. It's a massive undertaking, but with her dedicated fan base, it might just work. Zooming out, Brett Cooper's story highlights a tension that transcends her personal journey, the collision between individual star power and organizational control. It's a dynamic we've seen in Hollywood for decades, but it's now permeating political media too. As personalities like Brett build huge followings online, they gain leverage to negotiate or even walk away if they feel stifled. Networks like the Daily Wire, on the other hand, need these personalities to keep viewers engaged. At some point, the question becomes, who needs whom more? Brett's departure suggests that if a network can't adapt to its rising star's evolving ambitions,
because then we will have gone through everything. I will have seen you in every single light possible, and then I can be sure. And in my mind, and that was when I was, 18, I think. I was looking at the clock. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna sit around for 7 years and wonder if you're gonna want to marry me. I ended that pretty shortly after the fact.
So you broke up with him?
Yes.
Do you think too many women are making the mistake of willingly becoming the perpetual forever girlfriend?
Yes. Yeah.
The star might choose to leave. This dynamic could spark major shifts across conservative and progressive outlets alike, as more creators realize they might flourish independently or with more flexible partners. It's impossible to ignore the emotional weight of the situation. Brett's tearful farewell touched countless viewers who'd grown to trust her voice. For her part, the departure isn't just about quitting a job. It's about leaving behind friends, colleagues, and a platform that helped build her career. Even if tensions were high in the final months, one can assume there was still a degree of camaraderie that made walking away painful. Likewise, for the Daily Wire staff, losing a colleague who was essential to their brand is no small thing. Even if some parted ways under tense circumstances, it still rattles the internal dynamics. People wonder what changes will come next, whether a new star will emerge or if the network's identity will shift. Media experts are already calling this split a game changer. In a panel discussion hosted by an independent commentator, several analysts noted that Brett's exit could become a case study in brand and talent alignment. When the brand thrives on a clear ideological niche, but the talent wants to roam creatively, friction is almost inevitable. Some predicted more mainstream networks would try to poach conservative personalities with mass appeal, creating a marketplace of unattached voices who navigate their own terms. Could Brett ever reconcile with the Daily Wire? Stranger things have happened in show business. Some fans hold out hope that once the dust settles, cooler heads will prevail, and a compromise could bring her back for the Snow White role or even for cameo appearances in the Daily Wire's other projects. However, the swirling drama of unfollows and rumored betrayals might be too large an obstacle. Both sides would have to swallow pride and move past perceived slights. For now, that seems unlikely. Brett Cooper's departure from the Daily Wire is more than just another media shakeup. It's a revealing look at how ambition, ideology, and creative freedom can collide in the modern landscape. She came onto the scene as a fearless commentator who breathed new life into conservative media, won over fans with her wit, and shook up the comment section format. Then, in a move that stunned everyone, she decided to break away at the very moment she was on the cusp of a high-profile acting role. This chain of events has forced viewers to question how much control networks should hold over their talent and whether star power inevitably outgrows smaller stages. As for Snow White, the fate of that film remains in limbo, with speculation running wild about whether Brett will still don that iconic gown. And as for Brett herself, she's made it clear that her journey is far from over.
So that happened in New York on Saturday. So
Okay.
it was literally just a bunch of fat people. They went to the beach. And I said this on the show where I said, if this was like an interest group, if this was people that were coming together with a common
Pickleball.
shared experience, there you go.
Star Wars.
If they were coming together because these are people that are trying to lose weight and they have one health problem, they need camaraderie, they want support, that would be one thing. That's great. I believe that it's wonderful to find people that you share things with, things that you're going through. That community is important. Just in general, I think our society is lost.
Teasing new projects, bigger collaborations, and a future that might transcend the conservative bubble in which she first gained fame. One thing is certain, Brett Cooper isn't simply fading into the background. Her next steps will be watched by fans, critics, and industry insiders alike, all eager to see how her story unfolds. Was her departure the first page of a bold new chapter? Or a risky leap that might leave her untethered in a brutal entertainment environment? Only time will tell. For now, we're left with swirling rumors, heated debates, and an undeniable truth. Brett Cooper's star power is undeniable, and she's determined to harness it on her own terms. If there's one takeaway from this drama, it's that talent this bright can't be confined for long. Whether you view her decision as a betrayal of conservative ideals or a necessary step toward creative growth, her journey symbolizes the ever-shifting power dynamic between media platforms and the individuals who bring them to life. And while the Daily Wire scrambles to recalibrate, Brett Cooper is forging ahead, eyes fixed on a horizon that promises both uncertainty and immense possibility.